All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Colton Cockrell. I'm a certified financial fiduciary and independent financial advisor with Share McKinley Group. Today is a special day. I have two lovely attorneys with me, and no, I'm not in trouble. They came here willingly to answer some questions that I have. So first, let's just jump in and let me introduce them. I have Gratia Schoemakers with GP Shoemakers PLLC. And then I also have Duana Boswell with the Boswell Law Firm. All right. So we're going to be talking about estate planning and family law. Okay, so we're going to have a lot of questions. Ladies, thank you for being on this little break with me today.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to jump right in. I know that attorneys are straight to the point, and I'm going to be straight to the question. Sound good? Cool. Okay, great. So we're going to start.
Good.
All right. So what has quarantine taught you about estate planning?
That it's necessary. A lot of people wait and procrastinate, and 70% of us don't have a plan. However, when you get sick, it's too late. We cannot go to the hospital. We cannot get witnesses in there. We cannot do the notarization when you really need it. So I guess what the situation has learned me would be to have these conversations early on and actually plan when you don't need it quite yet.
No, that's great. That's really good. Because a lot of people do put this off, and whenever something like this happens, anything can happen, right? That's great. Great answer. And so, Duana, I'm going to ask you the same question, but we're going to gear it towards family law. So what has quarantine taught you about family law?
So probably the biggest lesson that I've learned with family law is just how archaic the system was and dealing with the cases. So we were forced, or the courts were forced, to really start going more towards remote hearings. And I believe that that is going to be the trend of the future. And I think that's going to stay. It's going to relieve, especially in large counties like Harris County, where we were having anywhere from 80 to 100 cases on a docket any day. Now the courts will be able to more efficiently process those and get things moving a little quicker when we don't actually have to physically appear in front of them. And so I think that's been a huge improvement in the family law sector for this period.
Okay, that's really good. And Grace, let me jump back to you here. What are the top three things that clients and prospects are contacting you about right now during this pandemic?
I guess it depends on where they are with their health. I have some people that are in the hospital on the ICU. They want wills. It's, this is time to make holographic wills, I guess. But we also have medical power of attorneys, and we have power of attorneys because people need to keep paying their rent. People need to be able to talk to electricity providers. There's a lot of stuff that happens in our daily life that we take for granted. And having power of attorneys and wills, or even living wills, to deal with the situation is very important.
So you're getting a lot of planning questions then. People are realizing, oh my gosh, I'm in the hospital. I need to make sure my house is in order, but it's almost too late at that point. Is that what you're saying?
Well, we get planning questions, but we also get, my loved one died. Now I need to go through probate. How fast can we go through probate? And well, we can't go faster than the courts allow us. So there is a delay when you don't plan.
Especially going back to what Duana said, how it's archaic, right? So I'm sure that going to the courts, it is taking a little bit more time than normal. So Duana, let me ask you the same question. So what are three things that clients or prospects are contacting you about during this crisis?
Probably the biggest contact has been divorces. So following the trends from other countries, there's been a surge in divorce once everything starts opening back up. Another big question I've been getting asked is, do I have to let my kid go on visitation to the other parent if the other parent's not practicing social distancing and putting all the safeguards in place? And the simple answer is, yes, you have a court order. You can't just ignore the court order because of what's going on. However, if you believe the child is truly in danger, obviously don't let them go. But just because you think the other parent might not be as protective as you are, we're going to see an uptrend in enforcement filings and people being held in contempt for not allowing the visitations to occur. So I would always suggest that people try to reach agreements between themselves on how they're going to operate while we're still hopefully sheltering at home for a little bit longer, and being safe in those regards. And probably the third question I get is, do I have to keep paying my child support? Yes. Pay your child support.
Is that really a question that people ask?
Yes.
Oh, goodness. Okay. Well, all right. Now, this is the last question I want to ask the two of you, and then I want to get into individual questions, more specific to estate planning and family law. So, Grace, again, I'm going to just continue to follow suit here. How do you service clients during times of uncertainty like this?
Well, like Duana mentioned earlier, we are doing remote court hearings for probate hearings. We are doing remote planning. We do some unorthodox in-person planning, like we have signings on parking lots and public spaces to keep our social distancing up. But, you know, we will make it work, because Duana has a really good point. The laws are archaic. We have to find original ways to comply with the law, because the law does not allow full functionality in a more online setting like what we need in a situation like COVID-19.
Yeah, I can only imagine the hoops that you'll have to jump through. And Duana, same question. If you can just kind of touch on what Grace just said, how are you servicing clients during this uncertain time?
Well, fortunately, we had been pretty much a paperless office before this, so all of our files and everything were already online. And so it was a pretty easy switch for us to go to working from home and being remote. So we do have the availability to meet in person via appointments during the stay-at-home order in the office on a case-by-case basis. Most of my cases or appointments have been via Ring Central chat or phone. I've got an answering company that's going to answer my phones 24/7, and so they always get a message to us in real time. So just because somebody's calling and getting an answering service doesn't mean they're not getting through to us. I made sure that all my clients have email and text numbers so that they can reach us, and haven't seen a whole lot of difference other than more people are open to the video conferencing now.
Yeah, video conferencing is a big deal. I mean, it's changed my practice as well, and we're probably going to see that stick around even after this is all passed and gone away. So now let's get specific here, and we kind of touched on this already a little bit, Grace, but I want you to kind of expand on this. So, you know, everything going on, people are in the hospital, you know, they need help. What is the importance of having a durable medical and financial power of attorney already set up before they even go into the hospital, before they even really need it?
Well, if you look at what we see in the news, and you hear about people having to be on breathing machines or people being in induced comas, if there's any complication and a decision needs to be made and you cannot make that decision because, well, you cannot voice your opinion on the subject, you really want someone that you know and trust and you probably had a conversation with to make the right decision for you. You don't want it to be an ad hoc decision by a stranger to make sure that because it's life-saving, we have to do it if that's not what you want. So for the medical, that's really where the need is in. The other thing is for the power of attorneys is if you have someone, well, like me, I'm single, I have bank accounts, I have things just in my name. I don't have anyone on there. But if something happened to me, I need to have a power of attorney from someone who I trust, who can still pay my bills, who can pay my rent, who can pay my insurance if policies need to be renewed, anything like that. Without a power of attorney, no one can make these payments, let alone get to my money to make the payments. So there's a lot of what ifs if you don't plan for it. And it's the peace of mind of planning and having a safety net that makes, in my opinion, the recovery easier, because you don't have to worry about all these things because you have something in place. Worry is just not good in any situation.
Yeah, that's great. And let me kind of probe a little deeper here. So what about for young adults? So just turned 18 or 19, 20, 21, they're young, but they are adults. What's the importance of having a HIPAA release in this situation?
Well, the HIPAA release is important if you want other people to get your medical records. If you want, for example, your parents to go and get a second opinion on you. But then again, they cannot get a second opinion because you're an adult, you have to have a medical power of attorney for other things as well. So it's very difficult. The basic rule that I tell people is the moment that you turn 18, make someone the power of attorney for medical, make someone the power of attorney for financial and other decisions. No, you don't have to do this right away. You don't have to say, oh, my so-and-so can get to my money right away. We can make it in such a way that it only becomes effective if you really need it. We can also, you know, I mean, the medical power of attorney doesn't become effective unless you cannot make a decision. The HIPAA release is usually in the medical power of attorney, so it's an extra if you have a separate document. But everyone who has a bank account, everyone who has a car or any other assets that are titled or has a holder's name, like a bank account, should have these documents so that other people can manage them if something happens to you and you cannot manage it yourself.
Okay. All right. So really the HIPAA release, from what I understand, is that's basically if, you know, your child they were diagnosed with COVID-19, they're on a ventilator, you can actually call, if you have a HIPAA release on them, you can actually gather information and know that they're in a hospital, and that's the issue, correct? Okay, so it's just gathering information. Awesome. So now, Duana, let me go to you. We talked about this earlier, just about divorces. You said that you've been asked a lot about that. So kind of what do you think is going to happen? I've heard this as well, that a lot of people are getting fed up with their spouses being at home more, which is crazy to me. But tell me, what's that trend? What's going to happen when everything really opens back up and people are going to go and live a normal life again? What do you think?
Well, there's been a lot of experts predicting that we are going to have a massive surge in divorce filings when the courts open back up. They're looking at the other countries and what's happened in, like, for instance, China. When they opened back up, there was a huge surge in divorce filings. And they believe that the trend is pretty well set in stone, that that's going to happen, because when we're sheltered in place and we're, you know, in close confines with our spouses, then any issues that were there before we were having to shelter in place are definitely going to be exacerbated. So if you're having financial problems, you're probably having even worse financial problems now. If you had substance abuse problems, the stress is going to be higher now, so those are going to come out as well. Domestic violence cases have surged. So I think just the fact that the stressors that were previously there and are present in every marriage, if you don't have a good system on how to deal with those with each other, then they're just going to keep building and building and building, and people are going to really be focused on that since they don't have anything else to focus their attention on now, and that's going to just cause a lot of filings.
Anthony, I'm going to kind of go a little deeper there. What are other issues that are going on right now in the midst of people staying home more and being around each other? It doesn't have to be for married couples. It could be kids and parents, whatever.
So probably the biggest issue is the domestic violence increase. They're reporting over 1,500 cases in Harris County Sheriff's Department were reported in March alone. I haven't seen any statistics for April, but I bet it's going to be a lot higher. They're saying there's been, at one point, a 79% increase in domestic violence calls to the Houston Police Department. So as those stressors I was mentioning increase, the likelihood of violence surfacing is going to increase as well. There are some great programs that have been put in place to help people. So the big thing is you don't have to stay in that situation. I think we have a lot of victims believing that there's nowhere they can go right now. Well, call the shelters. They're having grants granted to help them with hotel stays and other shelter stays if they have room. One thing I just found out that's pretty cool, Uber is giving free rides to domestic violence victims. So you don't have to be in that house. As a matter of fact, it's very, very dangerous to stay in the situation with things the way they are. Some advice is, if you've got weapons in the house, make sure you know where they are at all times. We definitely don't want any, shootings happening. And just, if you're afraid, get out. There's all kinds of help. You can call our office and we'll be able to give you some direction. There's trying to remember there's a coronavirus abuse hotline. So I just really encourage everybody to use that.
Yeah, that's so rough. It's crazy that the divorce rate's skyrocketing, and I hate to hear that about the abuse. I did not know that. That's really sad to hear. Grace, we're going to ask you really this last question here. We might have one more. When is a good time to put together an estate plan?
Right now. I mean, there's a lot on estate planning that you can start yourself. You can start collecting a list of all your assets. I mean, you need to do it for tax time anyway, so this is really the proper time to make a list of where your assets are, on what name they're under, which bank, which financial advisor. I mean, just make a list of your stuff, because if you have electronic billing or banking or whatever we have these days that's electronic, if other people get locked out, they won't find it. So having a list of assets helps. The other thing is, make sure someone can get to your passwords. Someone needs to go online as power of attorney. Someone needs to be able to manage your social media. I mean, it's a big thing these days. So having passwords already set up, having conversations with your loved ones on how do you see the future? What do you think is important? How do we need to plan? Do we have children that have bigger needs than other children? Do we have other things that we need to think about? This is all part of the process of planning. And you can start that today, even before you contact an attorney. You probably should contact an attorney to make sure that all the legalese is correct and that it will work when you need it. But the basic thought behind it, you can already start right now.
That's good. And let me ask this question, and you can just give me like the top 2 or 3. Duana, we'll start with you. So when going through issues like this, when facing abuse or something like that, what are questions when you're vetting a attorney to trust? What are questions that you would recommend asking the prospective attorney?
One good question is, especially if you have a domestic violence issue, is, are they familiar with domestic violence and the law? There are different laws that affect domestic violence cases that attorneys should be aware of, such as you filing objections to mediation, making sure if a protective order needs to be pursued, that's been pursued. I can tell you courts are hearing protective orders. They are open in-person hearings for protective orders. Child abuse cases, open hearing those cases in person. So there's no delay in those cases whatsoever. That's just the big one, probably. Don't wait. Okay,
no, that's good. That's good. The experience is very important. And Grace, I'm gonna ask you, whenever you're like, you know what, man, this is a wake-up call. My wills, my trust, power of attorneys, whatever I need to get something. What do you recommend people ask their prospective attorneys when they're interviewing them to do business?
How long have you been doing this? Because you don't want any attorney who has not a focus on this area to draft you a document. Because I've seen documents from attorneys who do estate planning as an afterthought, and you will not get the results that you wanted to have. You need you need to be comfortable with the attorney that you pick. It doesn't matter what type of law. You need to be comfortable having open conversations, whether it's estate planning, family law, probate, bankruptcy. It really does not matter. And I guess the other thing that people really need to be aware of is, what do you really want? And get educated. Find an attorney who will educate it on the law, on the subject. Like Duana said, you need to know your rights. and the possibilities that you have. You don't want to just walk in and say, hey, I need this, and then find out at the end of that journey that that's really not what you need.
That's great. And I can vouch for both of these ladies. Not only is Duana experienced in abuse cases, and you openly say this, Duana, so I'm comfortable saying this, you are also, you were a victim of domestic abuse as well. And Grace, you know, she's from the Netherlands. She's been to law school twice, once in the Netherlands and then here. So both these women have a lot of experience, and that's why I had them on today, because I know that they know their stuff. And definitely reach out to them. Their contact information will be available if you have any questions. And last question, because we've kind of tiptoed around this, are the courts open, Grace?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Perfect question. Duana, would you like to expand on that at all, or?
Sure. Technically, the courts are open. What they are closed to is in-person hearings, unless it is a hearing of a type that is necessary to have in person, and remote is not possible. So courts are open. They're actually probably even more efficient than they were before. They're allowing the uncontested issues and agreements to be proved up with affidavits. The governor has relaxed the restrictions on remote notaries, so anybody can notarize via video conferencing. And so we're able to get those. There's also an approval for not having to have a notary and just doing it what we call an unsworn declaration. So everything's moving forward. The district clerk's offices are still accepting the filings. You can actually schedule remote hearings. I know Harris County has it online, the procedure. Galveston, I believe, is still doing phone. I'm not sure. I haven't seen any. Grace may have seen some. I haven't seen any protocol on video conferencing. But I do know that the Galveston County courts are closed to in-person hearings unless absolutely necessary as well.
Okay. Well, ladies, thank you all so much. That was a lot of information, a lot of good information. I know I learned something today. So thank you both for being here. Really appreciate it. And so, yeah, y'all have a good rest of your day. Duana, Grace, y'all enjoy your weekend. And we will all three see y'all later. Feel free to reach out to these ladies. They're great. All right. Thank y'all. Bye.
Bye.